Welcome to Rethinking Death. Life, where we explore life, loss, and the legacies we leave behind. This special series is dedicated to the widows, the ones who have loved, lost, and are learning to live again. I'm your co-host, Kim Harms.
And I'm Kathy Dempsey, your other co-host, and we're so excited to be here today. And we have special guests, Naomi Rhodey, who was really the founder, and she's the one who was just really called to this ministry several years ago. And we're so happy to have her back on this podcast today on this Widow series. So welcome, Naomi.
Well, and I'm so thrilled because in this 10-minute segment, we're going to have our guest share her story. And there are 10 of these wonderful widows that are part of the Safe Strong Place. And one of them is Marylen Eden, who is very precious to me because she just happens to be my husband's sister. So Marylen, we've known each other for a really long time. And you had a wonderful husband, Jim Eden. And tell us that story. Tell us a story about just a tad about your marriage and then what happened when he died.
Well, we had been married for 42 and a half years, and he did not have any health problems that I knew of. But one day I came home from work and he said, I'm going to the doctor. I don't feel very well. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go back to work and take off all my stuff and I'm coming with you. And he was kind of you don't need to do that. I can go to the doctor by myself. And I said, no, I'm going to go with you. So I did that. And he got called into the examining room at the clinic. And it wasn't very long before I heard a code blue. And, you don't think very much of that. And then two nurses who I knew them personally came out into the waiting room, and one of them went on either side of me and said, Jim has been taken to the hospital and he's very serious. So what happened was on the examining table, his heart blew up. So it was very sudden. We were relatively young. I was 63. He was not quite 67. And I started the path of widowhood.
Tell us just a little bit about where you were living and what you were responsible for at the time, because it's quite amazing.
We owned and operated a campground in northern Minnesota. And of course, he did all the maintenance and I did a lot of the bookwork. But I was not used to getting on a lawnmower to mow 14 acres. I was not used to fixing somebody's electrical stuff that didn't work. I learned how to fix sewage systems that didn't work. So it was a process.
Well, it's interesting as you're sharing that. So often, in fact, probably always, God brings us together like this. And we each have special gifts. In our relationship, Jim and I'm kind of the relational one, and he's the one that does all the financial he's the entrepreneur of the year and the bada. And I haven't a clue half the time about what that's about. And if something happened to him, then that's all on my shoulders. That's exactly what happened to you. But the way you handled that was amazing, Marylen. I was so proud of you. I can remember you saying, I learned how to park those big campers and pull them in the right spot. And, oh, gee, there was something even about toilets once that you got involved in. Not meant to be your special gift before you were married. But tell me about the grief, Marylen.
It was just kind of sudden.
Sure.
But one of the, I guess I tend to find blessings or joy in whatever I have. And one of the blessings I felt I had was when he died, I had not had to take care of him for months or whatever. And so I was not physically tired when he died. So that even though when someone dies, you do feel it, whether it's been long or short. But I didn't have that mental um, tiredness and not feeling that I couldn't go on. And the day after his funeral, his aunt, who was also dying, and he was her executor, um, she said, "No, you're going to be my executor now." So the day after his funeral, I went 80 miles to another town and got my papers all signed for her. And then I did that. I what I'm trying to say is I had no time to think about poor me.
Because God gave you another task and another task and a vision and another vision of ministry to fulfill that void.
Boy.
Beautiful.
And including some of, you invited me to Hawaii right away and other things. And, what's not to find joy in?
A lot better than the toilet thing, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
For sure.
About your family at the time that he died.
Pardon?
Tell me about your family at the time he died.
Okay, I have you and Jim, of course, as a brother and sister, and I have another sister. I only have one daughter, and she was in college. So she, of course, came home for a couple of weeks, and then she had to get on with her life. So at that point, then I was left physically alone in Park Rapids. But the rest of you reached out to me, for which I was very grateful. I also had some really close friends, or some of them weren't so close at that time, but we started gathering for coffee, and some of them knew my husband better than I knew them. And so it was always a good time. I think it's really important to laugh and to cry and to talk about the one you lost. And I had a group of friends that I could do that with, and that was just wonderful. We could laugh, we could cry, they could tell stories I didn't know about. And it was just, that was a good way of remembering him in times that weren't so rough.
So you were finding ways to modify and manage your peace. Well, this has been a wonderful story to share. And we do pray that people who have been on this podcast will identify with your story, that peace comes when we look to the Father. Thank you so much, Marylen.
You're very
Thank you so much, Marylen and Naomi. And we appreciate you being on the podcast today. For all our listeners out there, we appreciate if you like this and subscribe and share with anybody, any widows that you might know or anybody who could benefit for this. If you want to look up the Naomi and the Widows Club, it's on Amazon. You can get the book there, and it's just full of incredible resources for anybody that's going through this challenge in their life.